Good evening and welcome to tonight's virtual forum featuring candidates for Town of Coupeville Council member positions, Coupeville School Board positions, Whidbey Health Board Commissioner positions, and Port of Coupeville Commissioner positions. This forum is being co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Whidbey Island and Snow Isle Libraries. You can find additional information about using the libraries on Snow Isle's website. Our thanks to Snow Isle for aiding in the publicity of these events, including the production of the eye-catching posters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We endeavor to make democracy work by offering events like this, by registering voters, and much more. If you are interested in our work, join us. Go to our website and become a member today. The library's mission is to provide resources to the community for lifelong learning. Our partnership enables us to pool our resources to provide neutral and unbiased information to the public. Snow Isle would like you to know that in addition to in-person services, they provide a wide variety of online resources, including programs and downloadable print and audiobooks. Visit their website to learn about all their services and current COVID-19 protocols. My name is Shantina Steele. I am a member of the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator this evening. My fellow panelist, in addition to the candidates, is Joanne Rooms, our timekeeper. Our local League co-president, Carol Pulliam, is our Zoom platform manager. Candidates will be introduced in the order they will appear on the voters' ballot. Tonight's forum will consist of 4 segments. The first will feature the candidates for Port of Coupeville Commissioner District 3. The second segment will feature the candidates for Hospital Commissioner Position 2. The third segment will feature incumbent candidates for Town Council positions 4 and 5. And the fourth segment will feature candidates for School Board positions 2, 3, and 5. The format this evening will be standard Q&A. The questions have been selected in advance by our forum committee from those submitted to us by League of Women Voters members and the public. None of the questions have been disclosed to the candidates prior to the opening of this forum. The moderator will pose all questions. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer all questions. The order of the candidates in respect to questions has been determined in advance by the League organizers to ensure a random and fair sequence. The first responder to a question will have 90 seconds to answer. The remaining candidates will have 60 seconds to answer. The timekeeper will signal when 15 seconds remain by showing a yellow card and a red card when time is up. Candidates will not pose questions of each other or engage in personal attacks of other candidates during their responses. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. For further information about the candidates and to see their responses to a different set of questions, visit the League of Women Voters Washington website at vote411.org. This forum is being recorded by the League. A link for viewing it will be posted on our website. No other recording is permitted. The League strictly adheres to the requirements of the FCC regarding use of recordings. Any use of the recording requires approval by the League of Women Voters Whidbey Island, and then with the caveat that it must be broadcast in its entirety. No candidate is allowed to edit or use the footage for campaign purposes. We will begin with the questions for candidates for Port of Coupeville Commissioner positions. When they have concluded, we will transition to Whidbey Health Board Commissioner candidates, then Coupeville Town Council candidates, and we will conclude with candidates for the Coupeville School Board. Let's begin. We will now proceed with our Q&A for candidates for Port of Coupeville Commissioner. The Port of Coupeville owns and manages 3 properties: the Coupeville Wharf, 24 Front Street, and the Greenbank Farm. Port commissioners are responsible for the health and future of these historic properties, as well as the economic vitality and growth within the communities they serve. Port commissions establish long-term strategies for a port district and create policies to guide that development, growth, and operation of the port. They are also responsible for a port's annual budgets, approving tax levy rates, and hiring the professional staff members responsible for a port's daily functions. Commissioners serve 4-year terms. Mike Serafinoff, you will have 90 seconds to answer the questions.
I want to interrupt Shantina and Mike. Our timer computer has shut down. So I will be doing the timing until she shows up. You're back. Okay, never mind.
Sorry.
Thank you.
And
All right, thank you.
Michael Moore, you should mute until you're speaking. We're hearing a clicking noise. Thank you.
And Mike, if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, please let me know. I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. Again, you'll have 90 seconds to answer the questions. Question number 1. What is the major problem or issue the Port of Coupeville faces, and how would you address it?
Well, I have had very little contact with the port. So I only know what I've read on the website and a bit of conversation with one commissioner, John Mishusek. And my understanding is that the major attention these days is being given to the work on the wharf, the restoration of the wharf, that it sounds like it's $1 million project, and the port's portion of that is $100,000 approximately. So that is the major issue of the port. I haven't been involved enough in their discussions to have any good response to this. It of course is an important thing. We do have to repair the wharf, so I don't mostly when if I'm on the port, I will go ahead and learn more details about just how responsibly the money is being allocated and spent. So that is the major issue. I have issues that I'm interested in. I know that there is an interest in.
Time's up.
Is that it for now? Oh, okay.
We're going to move on to question 2. Thank you for that. Question number 2. What is the status of the port's financial liability regarding the Green Bank Farm?
Well, again, I haven't studied it carefully enough to know the details of the financial liability. When I was involved in the Green Bank Farm as an advisor for agriculture, I did follow the developments where we managed to pay it off, and we also managed to get a conservation easement on the farm. So I'm quite I'm not so concerned about that. I am concerned when I read in a recent report that only 2% of revenues come from events, and that's an awfully small amount. But of course, we're in a time when events are difficult to have public events. So I don't know for sure what that means. I understand that the percentage of the cost of or revenues from the farm from tenants is about 13% of the budget.
Time's
And
up.
I think events was only 2%.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Question number 3.
Okay.
How would acquisition of the Oak Harbor Airport
All right.
by the Port of Coupeville benefit its district, and is such a plant currently feasible?
Well, this one I've been reading about in our newspaper, and I actually think that it has to be because they would like us to pay $2 million of public money. And I personally believe that we have underestimated the possibility of having the OLF field head over to the port. This was an original plan many years ago, and the military peace dividend years ago gave us Fort Flagler, Fort Worden, and Fort Casey. And I believe that it makes more sense for us to concentrate on receiving the OLF. And it seems to me that it's a reasonable request, and the Navy, their real use of that field is both unpopular and it is unwise in a number of ways, impractical and wasteful of fossil fuel.
Do we still have you?
And
His time is
I think
at this point, even with that cut out.
Okay,
the
Thank you,
planes
Mike.
themselves are
Mike, you're cutting out on us a little bit, and the time for question 3 is up. And I'm gonna,
absolutely.
oop. Did we lose him?
I think so.
What should we do?
Please read Patrick Kennedy's statement.
Okay,
Did Patrick Kennedy send a statement?
yes,
And-
yes.
Yes, so as his 2-minute, and if we get Mike back,
Okay,
then we'll go back.
yep. Candidates who are unable to participate in our league forums may submit a 2-minute written statement to be read by the moderator. Patrick Kennedy submitted a statement, which I will read now. Thank you for inviting me to participate in tonight's forum. I regret that my schedule is such that I could not join this evening's discussion in person. I have reviewed the League of Women Voters website and watched several past recorded conversations. I find your forum to be an invaluable resource helping our community make informed choices. Since moving to Green Bank nearly 5 years ago, I have come to love our island communities, our rural values, economic diversity, land, waters, and habit. I volunteered resources and my time with several nonprofit communities and boards. These include the local Economic Development Council, Goosefoot Community Fund, the Land Trust, Island Shakespeare, and the Whidbey Community Foundation. Each experience has brought lasting friendships and I think contributed to the health of our community. When I learned that no one had stepped up to become our new port commissioner, I felt it was something I should do in the special filing period as I see challenges facing our port. What I would contribute is more than 30 years of financial and leadership experience helping companies and nonprofits become more efficient. I also earlier this year earned an industrial organizational psychology PhD and a leading leadership program. My passion lies at the intersection of conservation and orderly planned economic development. I see the port's role conserving aspects of our heritage, for example, the Green Bank Farm near my home, but believe more can be done to address challenges facing our community. Specifically, I see the commissioner doing a better job maintaining these heritage sites, directing disciplined economic development with higher wage jobs, using the port platform to build partnerships and promote housing in our community, housing that more of us who live here today can afford. Thank you again for this opportunity to share with you my aspirations for the port. I saw after adding my name, another qualified candidate did as well. It's very good to see we do have people willing to step up and volunteer. Whatever the election outcome, our Green Bank Coupeville communities will be better served. Patrick Kennedy. Thank you, Patrick, for that
Okay.
statement. Do we have Mike back with us?
Let's move on.
Okay. Okay. We will now proceed with our Q&A for candidates for the Whidbey Health Board Commissioner positions. The Whidbey Island Public Health Hospital District, operating as Whidbey Health, is organized to provide health care for everyone on Whidbey Island. Oversight is provided by a board of 5 elected commissioners. The Board of Commissioners is responsible for strategic direction and financial oversight of the district, including Whidbey Health Medical Center, its clinics, and various physician practices. Commissioners are elected for 6-year terms and represent distinct geographic areas on Whidbey Island. They meet monthly and act as liaisons between the hospital and the community. Now for question 1. Question 1. What are the challenges for a community hospital to build and maintain the public's confidence in its services? Question number 1 will go to James Golder first. You have 90 seconds. James Golder, you're muted. You'll need to unmute. There we go.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. The situation with the Whidbey Hospital is its reputation is a little bit tarnished. Approximately only 24% of the people on the island go to Whidbey. The rest you will go to either Skagit Hospital or the hospital up in Anacortes. I think that what we need to do is we need to work on Whidbey's finances so we can get our employee situation improved. I think our nurses are underpaid, our staff is underpaid. The administration, I believe, is overpaid. I think our doctors are underpaid. We need to help to recruit more doctors and additional nurses. I've talked to a number of nurses and their morale is very low. I think we need to work on improving the morale of the employees of the hospital. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, James Golder. Kurt Blankenship, you'll have 60 seconds. And Kurt, are you there? You're muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Thank you to the League and Snow Owl Library for making this forum available this evening. There are a number of challenges facing the hospital. One of the big ones is to be able to improve our ability to recruit and maintain staff, not just nurses and providers, but frontline staff like cafeteria workers, maintenance people, et cetera. It's been a real challenge, especially with the pandemic. Improving our finances is also a challenge. Operating as a critical access hospital is a very tight margin, particularly in these times. It's a very complicated process. Building trust with the community has also been a challenge, I think more so in the past than it is now. Our services have improved. We've provided a lot of new services to the community, and we've become much more responsive to listening to the community, but we need to keep that going and continue to improve it. The public sees that we put in a pharmacy, that we've put in a new wing to the hospital.
Time's up.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Okay, question number 2. How does a hospital prepare for emergency conditions that might overwhelm the facility's capacity? Kurt Blankenship, you'll have 90 seconds to answer this question.
Sure. We actually have a very detailed plan for handling emergencies that is coordinated with the state and with other hospitals in the region, and in a larger extent with federal authorities. Hospitals in Washington are required to have such plans. They're reviewed by the state and approved by the state. Our people periodically undergo training in the emergency procedures. We have tests, we have situations where we simulate emergencies to make sure that we are prepared to follow the plans that have been laid out. I think the biggest danger that faces all of us is if a huge earthquake were to hit the island and basically shut off access to the island. We have supplies that are stocked. We have providers that are ready. We have ambulances that can bring people to the hospital. We're prepared to follow that plan. And it's actually a quite good one and has been approved by the state.
Thank you, Kurt Blankenship. James Golder, you'll have 60 seconds to answer this question.
Thank you. As Kurt says, the state has provided guidelines for a plan which the hospital is complying with. I think they need to continue to test the employees' reliability when it comes to the different exercises that are going to be needed in an emergency situation. I think that the hospital should pursue additional training in each of these areas and make sure we're capable of making sure that every individual has an opportunity to have access to good health care.
Thank you, James Golder. Question number 3. The voters will be asked to approve a tax levy to support the hospital's operations and infrastructure needs. Why is this levy necessary? And that question will go to you first, James Golder. You'll have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I think that the voters should approve the tax levy. The money is needed. Unfortunately, there has been some bad financial management in the hospital in the past, and it's unfortunate that this type of levy is necessary. But there are reasons for it. We need to increase the pay that our nurses get, for one. My wife worked as a nurse there for 17 years in the OR. I have one doctor in the family and another doctor that's coming on board. And I know what they face financially. And I know that this money is needed for, and like Kurt mentioned it, for all of the staff, the workers. And I think that's my time.
It's not, that was unfortunate, my phone making a message.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You may keep going.
Okay, no, I think that the money is necessary to help improve the reputation of the hospital. Anything that can help the infrastructure, but particularly for the salaries of the nurses and the staff. I think they've been underpaid and overworked for a long time, and I think they should get recognition and be rewarded for the services that they provide. I know we have a high turnover in doctors and nurses, and I think that the financial improvements could help to attract better and more reliable healthcare workers.
Is that all, James Golder?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kurt Blankenship, you now have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I very much support the levy and hope that everyone else will too. The money is needed. The voters should keep in mind that the hospital has not asked for a levy increase since its inception in 1964. Some people confuse the EMS levy, which is separate from the levy that is being proposed now. And some people also confuse the bond issue that was approved in either 2000 and 2014 with the levy that's being requested now. The EMS and the bond issue are separate items. The bond specifically financed the new wing. The EMS levy only supports the EMS operations. This levy monies will be used, as Mr. Golder said, to improve and increase this compensation for providers, particularly nurses and doctors. It'll improve our ability to recruit and maintain those individuals. And also, as importantly, it's going to help us put in some very necessary infrastructure improvements, such as a new electronic medical record system and upgrades to components of the hospital's maintenance and operational aspects.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, question number 4. And our last question. How does a community hospital attract healthcare workers in a time when these professionals are in short supply nationwide? Kurt Blankenship, you can go first and you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, that's an excellent question. As anyone who follows the news knows, there is a nationwide shortage of professionals, and it's particularly acute for rural hospitals. Since 2010, 136 rural hospitals have been forced to close, just 20 last year alone, which was an all-time record. It's more and more difficult to attract people to live in rural areas. The fact that we're an island compounds the problem. We all live here because we think it's a beautiful and wonderful island, but convincing people who live in other parts of the country that to come here is a good thing is a challenge. It's quite a challenge. But as we talked about earlier, another component of being able to do this is to increase our compensation, to bring it up to a level that will attract people even with the high cost that we experience here on the island with housing and other aspects of life here. We also need to keep focusing on making it a good place to work, a good place where people will feel that they are respected, valued, and that their contribution to the overall healthcare of the community is widely known and respected. Thank you.
Thank you. James Golder, you'll now have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned before, my wife served in the Whidbey Hospital in the OR for 17 years. And I can attest to the fact that there's a lot of problems with the morale and the feeling of the workers toward the hospital. To attract new people, it's difficult. We support our granddaughter, who is trained to be a doctor right now. She's finished her 3 years and she's working as an intern. She's going to end up with over $800,000 in student loans by the time she's done. I think that there should be something done to help improve the abilities of doctors to be able to pay for their education, maybe grants to attract some doctors to help subsidize their costs, because this is ridiculous. She has to work for 3 years and pay tuition at a hospital and gets paid nothing for it. I think the hospitals can do a lot to improve the situation, these potential doctors, and help to recruit them.
Thank you, James. That concludes our questions. It is now time for your closing statements. You'll each have 2 minutes. James Golder, you may go first.
Thank you. My family's been on Whidbey since the 1980s. Like I said, my wife was an OR nurse. We have 1 doctor in the family and a second one coming on. My background, I have a Juris Doctorate degree from University of Puget Sound and Notre Dame. I served 8 years as a state representative, and I was the chairman of the business committee, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. I was a political appointee to Washington, D.C. for the president. My background lies in business and economics. Mr. Blankenship has been a very honorable and successful attorney. His background and mine differ. His is in law, mine is in economics and business. I'm a turnaround specialist with businesses. I can move into the hospital and help to cut some of the unnecessary expenses and to improve their revenues. I think with my experience in the business field, I can provide a real asset to the hospital.
Thank you very much. Kurt Blankenship, you can
Thank
go.
you.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's been my honor to be a commissioner on the Whidbey Health Hospital Board since 2017. I was initially appointed to fill the unexpired term of someone who had resigned, and then at the next election was elected to fill the remainder of that term. Now I'm up for a full 6-year term. I'm very passionate about healthcare. I'm a graduate of Tulane University Law School. I've been a healthcare attorney for 44 years. I've represented hospitals, hospital boards, public health district hospitals, physicians, physician groups, ambulatory surgery centers, nurses, pharmacists, pharmacies, in all kinds of matters pertaining to healthcare law and to operations. I'm very knowledgeable about healthcare financing and what it takes to attract grants and to maintain hospital systems, what it takes to comply with the vast number of state and federal regulations that apply to the operation of Whidbey Health. My passion, like I said, is making sure that the healthcare services that our community needs and deserves are there and continue to improve. We need to remain an independent hospital. We don't need to be taken over by a large hospital system. That's happened to too many small hospitals, and the people that those communities serve have suffered because of it. I have the knowledge, the talent, and the experience to continue to keep Whidbey Health independent, to continue to improve its services, to continue to improve its finances. And I respectfully request your support and vote to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. We will now proceed to our Q&A for candidates for Coupeville Town Council. The Coupeville Town Council is the policy-making board of the town. It consists of 5 members who are elected volunteers. They serve 4-year terms. They meet regularly on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of each month, and at other times of the year for committee meetings, retreats, training sessions, and workshops. Now for question 1. Question number 1. What are the 2 most important issues or problems facing the town of Coupeville, and how would you address them? And question number 1 will go to Michael Moore first. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you for this opportunity to appear at your forum. I see 2 issues presently before the council that I think are the important ones. First of all, the ongoing budget issues. We're right in the middle of budget preparation and approval at the present time. We have public hearings coming up at our next few meetings, and of course we welcome any public participation. The second one that's coming up soon is our comprehensive plan update and revision. We'll be meeting jointly with the Planning Commission in early November. And again, the public is invited and more than welcome to participate in that process and let us know what your concerns are, because as council members, we have our own concerns, but we always want to know how does the public feel about this, and what can we do? Those are my 2 issues.
Thank you, Michael Moore. Pat Powell, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you to the league, and welcome to the participants. I believe the most important issue facing the town of Coupeville is how to keep the town real. This is one of the most wonderful places to live that I've been in. And it's because there's real people working here, living here, owning businesses. And I think balancing tourism with working folks and families is really important. And I think one thing that we did a few years ago was to not allow vacation rentals in residential zones. I want to see families living here, older people living here. And that brings me to the second important issue, which is what Mike addressed, is the comprehensive plan. It's been out of date for almost 25 years. Now is the time for the citizens to get involved in what the vision for this town will be and where they want it to go in the future. So as Mike did, I welcome people, please bring their interest to the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Question number 2. What will you do to address housing affordability, and how will you help unhoused people? Pat Powell, this question will go to you first. You have 90 seconds.
I believe that because there are only 3 areas right now in Whidbey Island that have the infrastructure: sewer, water, roads, transit, and other services, that the town of Coupeville needs to do its part in addressing affordability for people in housing. That means, and it might be unpopular, that we need to have higher densities, and we need to be welcoming to different options for affordable housing, workforce housing, and incentives that will help make that happen. The unhoused people, that is a difficult question, but I believe in providing a diversity of housing that we can address those folks that are disadvantaged and be part, make them part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat Powell. Michael Moore, you now will have 60 seconds.
I would point out that Coupeville already does have quite a wide variety of housing types, everything from mobile housing to apartments, duplexes, single family homes, and so forth. We are, as Pat and I have both mentioned, updating our comprehensive plan, and housing is a significant part of that plan. We'll certainly be looking at that. That's a field that's required by law, and we'll be receiving our full attention. Addressing the needs of low to moderate income housing is certainly going to be a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Moore. And now for question number 3, and this will be our last question. How does the town council support diversity, equity, and inclusion in its policies? Michael Moore, you can answer this question first, if you will. You'll have 90 seconds.
Again, that's something that's going to be addressed, I fully intend, in the update of our comprehensive plan. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has to be part of it. Housing certainly is part of that issue. We, unlike the city of Seattle, for example, we don't have the funds in a town our size to provide housing for the homeless, but we can certainly promote. We can certainly deal with the issue by making available services, by directing people to the correct services, so forth. We're fortunate that in Coupeville, we have the Island County services readily available here, and we can refer people to those services as needed. Other than that, we need to just make sure that our town policies deal with that. Our hiring practices, for example, and our zoning practices, as Pat mentioned, that perhaps by higher density zoning in some areas, we can promote diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Moore. That concludes our questions. It is now time for your closing statements. You will each have 2 minutes, and we will start with Pat Powell.
Thank you. I do want to endorse the excellent answers that Mike gave. I agree with him totally. I am in love with Whidbey Island, and in particular, the town of Coupeville. And I want to make sure that this town moves forward with trying to make this community, or making this community more walkable, addressing climate change in the ways that we can, making sure that our infrastructure, which is probably one of the most underlooked items in the town, is continue to be in incredible shape, and that we have the money and the capital improvement money to keep them up. That's the sewer, the water, the roads. Our staff do an incredible job with what they have, and we want to keep that going. Also, looking at things like the night sky, looking at bringing tourists in during the shoulder season and keeping our skies, which are the most historic element of Eby's reserve, which the town is luckily in, is highly important. Also, I think the mayor and the council work really well together. The town has an outstanding staff that is due in part to the mayor. And I want to encourage people to support that staff because they're the unsung heroes in this town that keep when you flush the toilet, it works. And when you turn on the water, it works. So I'm proud to be a member of the town council, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat Powell. Michael Moore?
I want to strongly agree with everything Pat just said. It's a pleasure to work on the council with Pat and the others. And I want to thank the league for making this forum available to us. I'm very supportive of what the league does. My mother was a longtime member of the League of Women Voters back in our hometown of Lewiston, Idaho. I'm running for re-election to the council for a number of reasons. First, I've just had a long-term interest in and participation in local government matters. I was just looking at when I first became a city attorney in Idaho was 50 years ago, and I've been involved in local government matters almost continuously since then, as both as a city attorney and as a municipal bond counsel in Idaho. And since moving to Whidbey Island, becoming a resident of Coupeville in 2014, I became a member of the Coupeville Planning Commission in 2016 and served 2 years there, and then was appointed to fill an unexpired term on the council in 2018. I ran for election to the unexpired portion of that term in 2019, a 2-year term, and I'm seeking a 4-year term at this time. Thirdly, I have certain priorities. Well, let me say first of all that I really genuinely enjoy being on the council. I like the colleagues, they're great people, and I hope that my service is useful. I do have certain priorities. Like Pat, I hope to maintain Coupeville's unique historical small town character. I think that's very vitally important as a vital part of Eby's Landing National Historical Reserve. A livable, walkable town. Secondly, I want to maintain our existing utility system, our water sewer system, as an efficient, effective, and financially self-supporting utility. And thirdly, I want to continue to maintain Coupeville on a sound financial basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Moore. Pat Powell, I just realized that I missed you on question number 3 and invite you to add anything that you'd like to add regarding the town council's policies about equity and inclusion.
Well, I did endorse what Michael said. It covered a lot of the things. The challenge that we have in Coupeville and actually on Whidbey Island is that our citizens are 86% or more white. And I think the first thing that will help address allowing more diversity is to get workforce housing, more workforce housing, so that people can be close to where they work and live and raise their families. So thank you for addressing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you to Michael Moore and Pat Powell. Now we will proceed with our Q&A for the candidates for Coupeville School Board positions. The Washington School Board standards provide a common framework for school board governance for local school boards and directors. One set of standards addresses the school board's leadership role in governing and includes responsible governance, expectation for student learning, conditions for student and staff success, accountability, and community engagement. The other set addresses professional standards for individual school directors and includes values and ethical behavior, leadership, communication, growth and learning, and accountability. Directors serve 4-year terms. And now for question number 1. What is the most important issue or problem the Coupeville School Board faces, and what would you do to address it? Question number 1 will go to Nancy Conard first. You have 90 seconds. Let's see. I think you're muted. There we go.
There we go. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity for this forum. It's a great opportunity to hear all the other candidates for me too. So I appreciate that. Well, obviously, the most important issue the school is facing right now is the return to school and dealing with the pandemic. I am grateful. I think the most important thing we could have done is to get kids back into the school buildings with their teachers, interacting with their educational activities and also with their peers. And I think if we can continue to follow science as it evolves for this pandemic, that we can keep them in a safe environment and allow them to continue. I personally know of several families who had really difficult times with their kids last year when they were isolated at home with online education. And while that worked, it wasn't the right social situation for the kids. And so I think that we really need to focus on how we can keep a safe and healthy environment for the students this year. And as I say, this is an evolving thing that we learn more about the pandemic every week or two, and we're probably going to have to make some more course changes to adapt. But I think we're able to, and the administration and the staff has been very agile and nimble and able to change as they've needed to. And so that's what we need to be doing for the rest of this year.
Thank you, Nancy Conard. Sherry Fay, you will have 60 seconds to answer the question.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be a part of these events, these past 2 campaigns for me. I think the most important issue is to maintain a healthy and consistent budget and not dip into the red anymore, which will allow us to address all the issues and problems, the ones that Nancy just touched on as far as the challenges that we've had to meet, and there have been many, to keep people safe, to keep staff and students in person. We've been able to do that. It's been at a financial cost. So maintaining that healthy budget is probably the first thing that comes to mind. There's many important issues though. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry Fay. Ward Sparacchio, you will now have 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. I believe the single most critical issue that we face right now involves the students that fell behind during the COVID pandemic. We essentially had children in remote learning for a year and a half. I almost call it a full 2 years. Nationally and across the state, many kids have fallen from a half a year to a year behind. If we don't catch these kids back up and do it right away, they're at risk of never achieving academic success, which will affect their lives. We have to identify who these children are, and we have to get them back to grade standard as a priority.
Thank you, Ward Sparacchio. Morgan White, you will now have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much for having me here this evening. I just want to begin this question by saying that we have an amazing school district. We have awesome staff, we have great families, and we have amazing students. And COVID has affected our school. It has affected our school and our school board. Loss of learning has been a huge issue for our students. You know, we need to continue investing resources into our teachers and our staff who are doing the hard work of academic recovery. And, you know, this addresses our school board specifically. The pandemic has hurt our school board. You know, our team needs to focus on regrouping and strengthening our interpersonal relationships. We need to be able to prioritize things like board retreats and work and study sessions to discuss strategic planning. I think when our team is functioning well, then we have the opportunity to make a really wonderful impact and collaborate on the academic achievement and student support. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan White. Now for question number 2. What is your opinion of the school district's safety protocols right now? Sherry Fay, you will go first, and you have 90 seconds.
Our safety protocols are based off CDC recommendations. We are following Island County Public Health recommendations, which are all based in science. So my opinion is that we are doing the best possible job we humanly can to keep kids safe, to keep staff safe, with the expectation that families are keeping sick kids home, knowing that staff are following the protocols. It's just an understood. We all want to be in person. We all want to keep people safe. So it is definitely a district effort, but it's also a community effort. So, and we're succeeding. Our kids are in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry Faye. Morgan White, you'll now have 60 seconds.
Thank you. As Sherry said, the Department of Health and CDC, OSPI, they have already laid out the health guidelines for our school district. And as a school board and a district, we follow those guidelines. Obviously, as you've heard in the news, there's frustration around some of those guidelines around masking and vaccine mandates. And I think as a school board, this is really an opportunity for us to model the behavior that we want our children to display. Things like kindness and care and compassion, and not anger and shame. I mean, ultimately, our goal is definitely to keep our students in the school building with that really valuable support network, and to keep our kids safe in the process. Our school board is also looking at ways to examine whole child wellness, and they've assembled a healthy youth task force to look at ways that we can support the overall health of our students. So it's a collaborative effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Ward Sprachia.
Yeah, thank you very much. As everyone else has mentioned, the school district's been handed guidelines, and I'm pleased with how they're handling the execution of these guidelines. I think the district, the superintendent, has done an excellent job in communicating what the expectations are of parents and families and children in terms of remaining safe. I think also there are two things that we need to look about in terms of safety. Not only just the safety in relation to COVID, but the safety that involves the mental health of our children as well. We know that a lot of children struggled with mental health challenges. Suicide rates increased during the COVID period, and there was a whole host of other problems. And I think we need to balance the guidelines in terms of COVID safety with the safety and the mental health safety of our children to make sure that they're taken care of comprehensively in that regard.
Thank you. Nancy Connard, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. I don't think I can add much as far as the safety of student and staff health and how that's being dealt with. All the other candidates had great answers to that. I guess one thing I want to say, I'm very glad that some of the additional money that came to the school district allowed us to hire social worker and additional nursing staff so that we have additional support, not only for the physical needs of the students, but also their mental and social issues. And another issue of safety of concern to me is just given the uptick in tragedy and out of the ordinary events that has been occurring in our society, I also think we need to spend some time looking at crisis intervention and all types of crisis. We've just gone through the health one, or we're in the health one now, but there also are things like weather, fire, physical attack. And I think it would be a good opportunity to take a look to see how we're prepared, both as students and staff and families, to address those kinds of issues. We've already found out what it's like to get a new problem like a pandemic and to have to respond to it. Those other areas would also be really helpful for us to look at again.
Thank you very much. And now we will move on to question number 3. How can schools support diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially regarding LGBTQ students? And we will start with Ward Sprachia for the first 90 seconds.
We need to, as community members, as parents, we need to be accepting of all people and who they are and what they believe. We've been in a world of so much toxicity, and we need to provide a better example to our children in terms of acceptance, in terms of accepting people for who they are and for what they believe, learning how to disagree productively, These are things that we owe our children, and we must do a better job. In terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'd like to look at this from the academic perspective. I think that every single child needs, and we owe them the opportunity to succeed by delivering them an effective education. And we need, much like I said earlier, to identify any individual, any child from any group that needs extra help, children that have fallen behind. We have to be able to identify who they are, and we have to be able to get them back to where they need to be, or get them to a point where they can be successful in academics and therefore successful in life. And I think this is something we need to do for all individuals, no matter who they are, no matter what their beliefs are, no matter what their ethnic background is, or what have you. Everybody needs to be treated with the same opportunity. We owe that to them.
Thank you for that. Nancy Connard, we will go to you next. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I think starting even in the elementary school with helping students to learn how to respect one another, how to agree and disagree, how to be civil, recognizing that there's differences among people, and trying to teach those very beginning behaviors at the younger level is a good start. And obviously continuing that and modeling that behavior up through the middle and high school years. I think it would be helpful if we also, I mean, this isn't just an issue with the kids in the schools, it's with the parents and the community as well. And I'm interested in seeing if there aren't some things that we could do as a broader community on these topics. Maybe working with the students, bringing in parents for parent and student discussions, maybe bringing in some members of the community and expanding to kind of take it on as a community issue to recognize how we are looking at equity and inclusion throughout our community. Those skills are the same whether you're in the school or in the community, and taking it on at a broader level, I think, could give it a greater impact. And our community is the kind of community that can do that kind of thing.
Fine.
Small, close community.
Time.
Thank you. We will now go to Morgan White.
Thank you for this question. Our school district is actually in the process of adopting an equity policy. And I wanted to read the mission statement of that policy to you. So the Coupeville School District is unequivocally committed to providing a safe, equitable, and inclusive working and learning community for all, whether about race, religion, language, immigration status, culture, sexual orientation, gender identity, class, ability, or a combination of these. All students deserve to be respected for who they are and acknowledged for the strengths they bring to our learning community. As I have volunteered and served at school, I have encountered these exact students who can identify with one or more of the traits in this policy. And I believe with my whole heart that each one of these students is deserving of being valued and respected. I'm committed to transparency, and I value community input as we process ways that we can bridge inequities within our district. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll now go to Sherry Fay.
Thank you. This is definitely something I feel deeply about. The district actually has, and I can actually address some of the things that Nancy and Ward brought up, and just piggyback on what Morgan shared. We have already come up with the policy for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is in our first reading last month. So the public is welcome to go back and read that document and give public input. We'll go for our second reading this month. The other school board director, Glenda Merwine, and myself have been working on that policy. We have an equity and inclusion committee, which does have community members in it. So I would definitely encourage you to contact the superintendent if that is a committee that sounds like you'd be interested in participating in. So we are definitely right in the middle of doing the work. So that is, I'm not sure, it's good intentions are great, but having a policy and procedure is going to protect students and staff. So I feel this is really important for us to keep progressing on. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move on to our next question, number 4. What are your suggestions to provide educational paths for non-college bound students? And we'll start with Morgan White for this question. You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, so the role of public school as defined by OSPI is to really prepare every student for post-secondary pathways, careers, and civic engagement. And this is actually one of the things I'm very excited about at school. You know, we are trying to develop programs that support students in different ways. And one of the things that we're looking at is career and technology education. And that provides, you know, science classes and wood shop and things that are preparing students for different career paths. And I think that this is such a valuable program. As a person who joined the military out of school, I think it's really important that we consider all of those paths for non-college bound students and that we support them in those educational directions. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we will go to Ward Sparacchio. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a great question, and I think this is really critically important as so many children, families and children are trying to determine alternatives to expensive college educations. I think that, you know, putting vocational programs in place in our public schools could be very beneficial. I also think that providing, one thing I've learned, I've knocked on so many doors over the course of the last couple of months, and I've learned from so many members of the community that they would like to participate and help out our children in their education. We may be able to put internship programs in place with local businesses and other industries where kids who don't want to go to college can go out and kind of get their feet wet and get some exposure in terms of career opportunities that don't require you know, the traditional college education. And that, of course, helps us in our community as well. We continue to keep our children properly educated, exposed to different opportunities, and then they come out and they join our workforce and they're productive members of our community going forward. And I think it's be a wonderful thing to do. It's a great question. Thanks for asking that.
Thank you. And now we will go to Sherry Fay.
So we have a lot of opportunities, like Ward said, pretty really diverse community that is very generous with their time and experience to our school district. We have an assistant principal, high school principal, who is just coming on board that is going to help us with this actual challenge of non-college bound students. We have our Open Den program, which has done an amazing job and is an incredible resource for students who are not looking to go to college right now, or that's not, for whatever is not a reason, you know, not an option for them. There's a lot of just the options that they have, and they have cultivated as far as resources to provide their students is pretty amazing. So it is something that is in progress. It's not as established as our other local school districts, but it is something we're working on. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move on to our next question. Number 5. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm trying to move on too quickly again. Nancy Connard, that question.
Thank you. You know, I attended Coupeville schools K through 12, and then went on to work at the school district for 30 years, 27 years as a school business manager. And during both those cycles at the school, there was a program at the time that was called Community Resource Training. And it's something I'd like to explore offering again. And it piggybacks off some of the things that Sherry and Ward talked about. We were able to offer vocational training in the class and school setting through regular curriculum, but we also found places that we could put students out in the community to work in different kind of careers, and actually almost an apprenticeship or shadow program. I worked in a dental office and learned how to be a dental assistant my senior year. There were students that worked and shadowed electricians, carpenters, and there's a real need for these trades now. And I think it might be an opportunity for us to, again, work with our community and get our students out and be able to use some of these people who are very qualified in our community to teach their trades to the students that we have. It's a program that worked well before, and I think it's time to take a look at it again. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, now we can move on to question number 5. What do you think the school's curricula should include to support students with different learning needs? And this question will go to Nancy Conard first. You have 90 seconds.
You know, there's a couple things that are already happening that I think are really useful. My husband and I are raising our granddaughter, and she's been in Coupeville schools since kindergarten, and she just started high school this year. And I remember our open house for middle school. The principal, Mr. Kappas at the time, said, no students are going to fail on my watch. And what we learned that meant is that teachers didn't just give grades, they gave opportunities to improve education. And they gave kids, if they did poorly on a test, they gave an opportunity to come in and take it again. If they needed to have extra homework to learn a concept, they were there for the kids to come in after school or before school to do that. And now this year we have these tutorial programs and advisory periods that the kids have where they get to work with their teachers outside of the formal classroom with more one-on-one. I think we're headed in the right direction already to try to not just measure what they know or don't know, but to figure out how to improve what they know with some different type of techniques. And these are 2 that I think have worked really well.
Thank you. Morgan White, we will go to you next.
Thank you. I think curriculum is a very important thing in our school district. And I think I am not the expert on curriculum. I'm not an educator, but I do know my children and my students. And I think we need to look at our curriculum policies, and we need to make sure that we're following through with our curriculum review plans, that we're utilizing review teams to ensure that our curriculum is addressing all types of learners who have different learning styles. And I think it's really important that we continue to invite people into that conversation who can speak about, you know, how their children, how their students are being affected by the curriculum that's being taught. We just need to continue to be transparent and have an open door policy and review our curriculum. It's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to Sherry Fay now.
Thank you. I think that's a great answer. I really love what Morgan said. Addressing that will be I think will be the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy that's in the works right now. I think what that will help do, Morgan, is keep the district accountable. And then it'll be up to us to be transparent about that. And of course, whenever we have curricula, the public, parents, guardians, students are always, you know, welcome to look to see what we're considering. The diversity, equity, and inclusion policy will help. It'll give us a structure to make sure that we're staying on track to meet all the needs of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ward Sparaccio.
Right, thank you. You know, this is a question that's very near and dear to my heart. I spent many years as a foster parent. I've had children from all kinds of backgrounds and all kinds of academic capabilities in my home. And I worked so closely and so hard with our great teachers and our school districts to identify the challenges that those kids have had and look for kind of specific mechanisms and tools, if you will, to improve them, you know, idiosyncratically. And I think that's what needs to be done. We need to look at where we're having groups of kids with challenges. You know, are we losing kids at the top because we're not challenging them enough? Are we losing kids at the bottom of the bell curve because we don't have the resources and the tools in place to move them along and to get them where they need to be? And we have to look at the data, look at some of the statistics, find out where we're falling short in terms of educating these kids that do need additional or different support, and then put the appropriate programs in place with them being targeted. I think that's what's important. Instead of just throwing programs into the mix, let's look at where the shortcomings are. Let's find those that need it and fix things directly.
Thank you. And now we will move on to question number 6. What role should public schools play in supporting the mental health of students? And we will start with Sherry Faye. You have 90 seconds.
My favorite question, and actually the basis for my initial campaign, Social and Emotional Health for Students. I don't want to say it's everything, but it is as important as any textbook that we give these kids as far as reading, writing, and arithmetic. The role that school directors can play is making sure that you have a budget that is going to support what the mental health of students need, whether it's social workers, counselors, classes, curriculum, all of the above. Also looking at the longer term, are you talking with your legislators? You know, District 10 Representative Dave Paul is on the education committee for the state. You know, he just started a forum for youth mental health that he opened up that I just signed up for. So hopefully the rest of the candidates will sign up for that too, because it's an opportunity for us to have a say for our students in our school district. So I think public schools, that's part of providing a holistic education for our students, is providing for their mental health as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Nancy Connard. You have 60 seconds.
Well, students are in school half of their lives. And I think that they haven't, the school has an equal role in supporting the mental health of students as the parents do. I think it's critical, as Sherry said, to make sure that we have appropriate staff to help and intervene when students individually need assistance. I also think it's important that our staff is trained in how to work with kids that are exhibiting signs of concern. I also think it would be helpful because the school is the main player in these kids' lives, is maybe to help with parents in recognizing mental health issues and how they can support their students. There isn't anybody helping parents hone their parenting skills. And so maybe there's times that we can also reach out to bring parents in as a group or individually to help them develop skills that they need that will help their students be successful at home and in the school. I think it's a role for all of us to support and play, and there can be some different ways to approach it.
Thank you. Ward Sparacchio.
Another fantastic question, and just a hugely important issue. I believe that in my role as a foster parent, I partnered with the educators, with our educators of our children in terms of dealing with mental health issues of children. I think that our schools, our teachers, and our staff are oftentimes the first line of defense in identifying mental health challenges with kids, especially kids coming from challenging environments. And we need to be able to provide the staff, our teachers, the resources and education themselves if they need it, to be able to identify and deal with mental health challenges that many children have. And critically important now, kind of on the heels of COVID, with the mental health issues that we know are prevalent as a result of this. So we've got to give our teachers and our staff what they need, the tools and resources to do their job. They're so important in helping with this.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Morgan White.
I love this question. I want to cross out should and say do, because as evidenced by the hardships that students experienced last year, school plays a huge role in supporting the mental health of these kids. And a lot of energy and comments have been given about having the right staff, trusted adults. I think those staff need to know how to connect students and families to resources. This year, I think as Nancy mentioned, we were able to take on the position of a social worker at school who can connect those students with local agencies and services. But I think that's a short-term position. I would love to see that position continue on in our district. I also would love to explore peer-to-peer programs where students can identify and refer peers when they see them struggling with bullying and suicide and stress or sadness. And so most definitely school does and play a role in the mental health, supporting the mental health.
Thank you. And so now we will move on to question number 7. Question number 7, what will your budget priorities be for the Coupeville School District? And sorry, Ward Spiraccio, we'll go to you first.
Thank you. You know, budgets are very complex. You can look at it on the surface. We've got about a $16 million budget in this school district. It's what's going on underneath that's important, and it's a kind of living, breathing, moving beast, if you will. I think the number one priority, of course, is our kids. It's about making sure that we take the dollars that we have, and those dollars are maximized in terms of our children, their education, their safety, their mental well-being, et cetera. And that will be my focus. I've not been a part of this school board. I'm learning in terms of what programs and what things we have in place, and I would look forward to being part of a group of people to help identify what things we can do and what things we can prioritize with the money that we have. Most of the money in the school's budget is spent. There's very little discretionary funding. That's just the way that it works. And we need to look at what discretionary funding is there. The additional and incremental funding that we received from the federal government, due to COVID relief and all of that, and make sure that it is used to get children back up to grade level, those that have fallen behind. And I look at those as kind of the important items.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Morgan White.
Obviously, budgeting is a huge priority for a school district. 85% of the Coupeville School District budget comes from student enrollment. And I would love to explore ways that we can increase our student enrollment. And one of the things that I've considered and discussed is a possible partnership or some type of program where we can support students who are enrolled in homeschool and bring them in to the Coupeville School District, and that increases our budget, and that increases the amount of money that we have to work with to hire really awesome staff and to put really wonderful programs in place for our kids. So I think we need to look at our enrollment in ways that we can increase that so that we can increase our budget and focus on serving the students as best as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll now go to Nancy Connard.
Thank you. Much of the responsibilities of the school district are dictated by the state, who funds the biggest part of our 85% pretty much of our budget. And with that comes the guidelines of what we're supposed to be accomplishing. I'll give you a better answer on my budget priorities after we work on the strategic plan that's on the work plan for this year and next year. I think that will give us an opportunity to balance what the state requirements are for us to offer to our students for education, as well as what our local interests are and how we achieve those goals. I think that as I understand it, the strategic planning process will be involving staff and parents and other members of the public. And I think that'll be a really good opportunity to identify what the highest priorities are and how we can uniquely tailor Coupeville School and our accomplishments to those that we're required to do by the state. And looking then at that strategic plan will be a great leaping off place to look again at budget priorities and to determine which things are most important for the Coupeville School District. It's the nice part about having local control. We get to make decisions.
Thank you. And now we will go to Sherry Fay.
So I've talked about the budget several times of these 7 questions that you've asked. And honestly, I think Nancy just hits the nail on the head. the budget priority is based off a strategic plan, which we currently do not have. So developing that strategic plan sooner rather than later would be fantastic. Otherwise, you know, a large portion of our money goes to from student allotment. So yeah, Morgan White, you know, if it continues to be that way, yeah, let's increase our, you know, the capacity of our students. We can do that. But until we have that strategic plan, it makes it really hard to formally say, this is what our priorities are. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move to our last question, question number 8. It is desirable for communities, schools, and public meetings to be safe places for civil discourse. How will you promote respectful, effective communication among people with differing viewpoints? And we will go to Morgan White first on this question.
Thank you. I say most definitely it is desirable for public meetings to be a safe place for civil discourse. You know, public comment is a place where alternate opinions and dialogue are brought to the school board. And when we have various perspectives, that really strengthens the decision-making process for our school board. And I think we need to provide ample opportunity for that feedback and that input to be given. Promoting respectful communication among people is a lot about modeling that respectful communication. And again, it's modeling the behavior and the respect that we are teaching to our children. That doesn't mean that we're gonna always agree, but we are leading with kindness and with compassion. You know, the school board position is elected to serve an entire community, even students. So it's really important that we gather input from outside sources in our decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry Faye, we'll go to you next.
Public comment in our meetings, I think, is crucial. I always encourage people to make public comment. It is with the expectation that, you know, you'll be respectful of the opportunity and the time that's allotted to you, just like we're allotted our 60 seconds right now. I would not speak to Morgan or Ward or Nancy disrespectfully if I disagreed with their opinion, which I probably would, and I have tonight, but you know, but that doesn't mean you act disrespectfully. You can have differing opinions, and goodness knows I've had a differing opinion of, you know, when I've been on board this past couple of years, but you know, but I still spoke effectively, respectfully to my fellow school board members. So it's possible to do. And so I don't think that's an unreal expectation to have for our public comment makers. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will go to Nancy Connard.
Well, as everyone says, I think the most important thing is to be modeling, being respectful, and to be, and then I think it's also important to provide opportunities for effective communication in maybe slightly different environments. Sometimes it's a charged environment when you're in a school board meeting and there's a limited amount of time to speak and there's a decision about to be made. Maybe there's ways to schedule a couple of different kinds of public meetings where a decision doesn't have to be made, but there's an opportunity to exchange ideas, maybe diffuse a little bit of the tension because you're not having to rush to a decision that day. The other thing I think sometimes helps, and especially in that same kind of situation, is sometimes bring in an independent person to facilitate a meeting. I know that we are lucky in Coupeville. We're not experiencing the tension that both the south and the north end of the island are with their school board meetings. But if we were in that situation, I might try to find an independent peacemaker to come in and kind of facilitate conversation between the two parties. Once you can break through the tension, you can sometimes hear better. And that would be my goal would be.
Thank you. Ward Sparacchio?
Yeah, this is critically important. And I think I mentioned it earlier. We've got to be able to teach our kids how to productively disagree. Civil discord, it can lead to productivity if we handle it right. I think the big breakdown occurs because people, the 3 L's I call it: leadership, listening, and learning. If we as a group, as a board, demonstrate that we lead with our ears, if we listen to people, if you empathize with people, you understand their perspective, learn what they want, and allow the community to see that, people will, instead of being defensive, they may be more willing and open to listening to someone else's opinion and perspective. And I think it's important that we lead that way, drive meetings that way, so that people can feel comfortable speaking their mind, and others will openly listen to them and respect what they have to say. I think that's the only way we're going to solve this.
Thank you. That concludes our questions. It is now time for your closing statements. You will each have 2 minutes, and we will start with Ward Sprachio.
Great, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. You guys have done a fantastic job with this. This has been a great forum with great questions. For those of us who are candidates, we can't see you, but those that are watching, thanks for being here and being part of the election process. I also want to thank my opponent, Morgan White, for running a great campaign. It's been fun. It's been a lot of hard work. I'm sure she's looking forward to November 2nd, just like I am. As a foster parent for many years, I am committed to children and child advocacy. I always said that if I could just make a difference in one child's life, then all the pain and all the work would be worth it. In my time doing that, I gained experience working with the state, with state agencies, many different state programs. I was in Olympia working with legislators and educators, understanding, children and child advocacy oftentimes being the last line of defense for many of these kids. Before relocating north to Coupeville, I was the board president of the South Whidbey Children's Center, an organization dedicated and focused on supporting working families. I moved to Coupeville because we love the Coupeville school system. We've had great teachers and enjoyed every bit about being here. On the professional side, I have executive experience primarily in the healthcare industry. I've held many senior executive positions. I've been a CEO. I've been a corporate board member. I've reported to venture capitalists. I understand finance and financing, financial management. I've created strategic plans, built budgets, and learned my way around a dime. I believe that my professional experience, along with my work with children, my understanding of children, how to develop children, I can marry these two things together and support our community, support our families, and support our kids as a director and as a board member, in the Coupeville School District. And I humbly and respectfully ask for your vote. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Nancy Connard, we'll go to you next for your closing statement.
Thank you. I think I'm uniquely qualified to serve as a school board member. As I mentioned earlier, I attended Coupeville schools K through 12. I went on to work at the school for 30 years, 27 years as the business manager, and I also served 20 years as mayor of the town of Coupeville. And now my husband and I are raising our granddaughter, and she is a student in the school. The skills I developed and the experience I had during my working time, I think will serve me well as a board member. Skills like budget and financial management, collective bargaining, purchasing and contracting, construction projects, working with diverse groups to build consensus. I've served as a policymaker and as an administrator. I understand and have experience in the duties of a school board member, setting mission, visions, and goals, overseeing and adopting budgets, representing and communicating with the community, adopting policies and monitoring their implementation, approving curriculum, and hiring, and the most important job, hiring and evaluating superintendent. I've been attending school board meetings, meeting with staff and board members and other parents, researching school board policies, researching information from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction and from Washington State School Directors Association in preparation for assuming this position. My goals as a school board member is that I would like the residents and taxpayers of Coupeville School District to feel that they have a good steward for their investment in their public schools. I'd like students who will feel that their time at Coupeville, that they were successful in obtaining education and socialization, and that later in life they'll reflect back, as I did and do, on the experience in this school being significant and positive in their development. And I'd like school staff who will feel well supported, provided with the tools they need to do their important work, and feel the support and appreciation of the community. Why should people vote for me? I have a demonstrated record of credibility and successful leadership. My work and community experiences, I believe, have prepared me well to make good decisions for our students, their families.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan White, we'll go to you next.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm very grateful to be able to share about myself and my love for Coupeville schools. I graduated from Coupeville High School in 1998. This place has been a community of people who have encouraged me and cared for me, challenged and supported me. Coupeville helped prepare me for my adulthood and launched me into a productive life. After graduation, I served 8 years in the United States Air Force. I hold a bachelor's degree from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, where I graduated with the highest honors. And I currently own and operate a local web design and graphics business. My husband and I have 2 children currently in Coupeville School District. And we believe that our small town is a really great place to raise children. And it fosters a sense of connection and strong relationships and support. So why am I running for school board? Well, throughout the course of the COVID pandemic, I learned heartbreaking stories of students struggling with depression and cutting and abuse and thoughts of suicide and becoming disengaged from academics. I volunteered with the district to deliver food and resources, but there was no doubt that our community has been hurting. Stepping into the role of school board is an opportunity for me to continue my service, to continue advocating for and supporting our students, teachers, coaches, staff, administrators, and volunteers. I've spent the last 14 years of my life dedicated to serving youth in this community. I've served in the classroom, on field trips with PTA and ASB, photographing sports events, school dances. I was the co-director of Coupeville Elementary Drama Club for 2 years. I coached Math Olympiad and served on several hiring and district advisory committees. In short, I have a proven track record of being present and active in our school district. This town and this school mean a great deal to me. And as a candidate with a history of dedication to the success and well-being of Coupeville children, I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. And Sherry Fay.
I'm running for re-election this year. It's not about fixing anything. It's about making something that's really great even better. Coupeville School District, they employ educators and support staff of the highest caliber, and our kids benefit from that each and every school day. We are actively working on new policy that will bring a more inclusive and equitable future for our students. Our track record is in the 2 candidates that are running. We have 2 alumni that are running for school board right now. So I think that says a lot as well. I remain deeply committed to advocating for a holistic educational experience for our students. And I hope that you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. That concludes our questions for this evening. Thank you all for attending this event. I would like to thank the members of the Forum Committee for all of their contributions to make these virtual events possible. And a huge thank you to our League Co-President and Platform Manager, Carol Pulliam, for making our virtual forums a success. One final note, ballots should begin arriving in the mail after October 15th. If you haven't received a ballot by October 22nd at the latest, contact the auditor's office at 360-679-7366. If you choose to mail your ballot, remember that it must be postmarked on or before November 2nd. There are also secure drop boxes located throughout the county where you can drop off your ballot. To find one located near you, go to elections@islandcountywa.gov. If you or someone you know has not yet registered to vote, you can register online until October 25th or in person at the auditor's office up to and by 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 2nd, 2021. Good night and be well.